objections that you've heard lately that we need to work on?
We're just listening.
Okay. Okay. Welcome to seller objections. As you guys know, working with sellers, you have about 2 to 1 the income of working with a buyer. And we're going to go over the top seller objections. So these are dialogues and ranked in order of what we hear the most as far as seller objections. So there's 2 different approaches to the seller objections. One is the closing for the actual listing appointment, and then the other one is closing on the listing. And if you are at the listing appointment and if you don't close on the listing, then that can be, thank you. Can you shut those doors on your end? Then that can sometimes be a huge challenge, because once you walk out of that listing appointment, and if you've properly qualified them and used the Waller Group seller appointment form, and you've asked that first question, if you're comfortable with everything that I have to say when I come out X time, then will you move forward with the listing? And you go through those objections at that time on the phone. Then when you're there at the listing, and if you don't close on the listing again, sometimes you have to ask that question again, then there's a good chance you will not get it at all. Because if you have properly qualified that listing, or if you haven't qualified it the way you should, then there's usually something they're not telling you as to why they're not signing that listing agreement. And that's why you may have to ask the same question 2 to 3 times. And a lot of these objections are going to cover that. So the first key to making sure that you eliminate these objections is that number 1 question before you go out, which is on the Waller Group seller form. So number 1 objection we hear the most is, we only want to give you a limited listing, a 30, 60, 90-day listing, so not a long-term listing. So this is, and we've refined these objection handlers, and these are in the Waller Group script book that is now in Back Agent. And what I sent out this morning is also a refined, updated version of all of these objection handlers. So make sure you do review all of these. We probably won't have time to go through all of them today. But the timeline, so this was a great one. This is one that we added today in our book, is you do want the most for your home, right? One of the things you're paying for are my negotiating skills. Negotiating with the buyer starts the moment I take your listing. You see the average list to sales price ratio is 97%, and I told you I get on average 98.5%. You want to put your own stats in here. And one of the ways I do this is take my listings for 1 year when the buyer says, or one of the ways I do this is I take my listings for 1 year. When the buyer says, what is the seller's motivation? Then I simply point to the link of the listing and say, the seller has no motivation. He is listed for a year, and if he gets his price, he'll sell, or if he can't, he'll die here. So that sounds extreme, but it also brings up a really good point, because the expiration date is on most listing agreements when you're showing property. So I think showing those MLS full detail sheets and actually showing that to your seller of, look, see, we can see when these listing agreements expire. And yours, if yours is on here for a year, then that does show that you're not a desperate seller. So if you don't have a short-term listing agreement. So that's something that anyone that pulls up this listing that's showing your home is going to see right there at the bottom of the MLS detail sheet. So I thought that was a Tom Ferry objection handler that I saw this morning. We added it to our book. And then, of course, what was already in our script book is I also can't do less than 6 months. That's our company policy. But what I can do is allow you to terminate the listing at any time if you don't feel I'm doing a good job. Does that sound fair? So that's a common dialogue. Okay, so objection handler number 2, we were thinking about X company. We've never heard of your company. You'll always want to restate or qualify the objection. So you've never heard of our company. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then if you're comfortable with our company, then you will move forward with signing the listing agreement. Is that right? Or you'll want to go ahead and list with me. Is that correct? So that's part of any sales process. You always want to isolate the objection, restate the objection, and make sure that that's the only objection. So you want to get their buy-in on that. And this goes for any objection. So I can understand your concern. Just to make sure we're on the same page, to make sure you're not only comfortable but confident, I can sell your home in the shortest amount of time and net you the most amount of money. Is that correct? Again, you want to make sure that we're on the same page, that it's about netting the most amount of money. So that should be the case. Okay, well, let's review the stats, and that's when you'll want to reference the seller's guide and show them the stats, the days on marketing, how we compare with the competition. Also show them how on average, our per person productivity is so much higher than the competition. Keller Williams is a big competitor in the suburbs, but Keller Williams, their per person productivity is almost half what ours is. So on average, their agents are selling half as many homes per month as what our agents do at the Waller Group. So where would they have the best chances of, whether they've heard of our company or not, just based on the statistics, where would they have the most chances of getting their property sold? So that's one approach. There's several different approaches you can take here. Another approach is, do you think that brand has anything to do with getting your home sold, or the actual value that the brand brings? Again, you are selling your client. You are removing the objection by restating the objection and isolating what they're saying. This is just sales 101. So here's why I ask. Most consumers don't ask that question. Here's a great example of why they should. And this is where we use the Hermes example. If you're speaking to a woman who a lot of times does indirectly make the decision on the listing appointment, then the Hermes example is something that's relative. So tailor this based on your client. But Hermes, founded in 1837, one of the most envied leather makers in all time. They use Italian leathers, a vegetable tanning process. They use herbs, making the skins more wearable and durable. This process takes months and months just for the leather and the tanning process. Most brands use chrome tanning, which is a faster and less expensive process with chemicals. It cracks. It doesn't wear well after a year. Are those things that you think about when you have an Hermes handbag, or if you're paying $20,000 or $25,000 for a handbag? No, it's because it's due to those things and the timeless design and the artisans that have designed these things that the brand has evolved. Well, that's similar to our marketing plan. So our marketing plan is what actually, over time, if we are conveying the best marketing and the best service possible, then a brand does evolve as a result of that. So that's the way, when you're choosing your realtor, you should take those things into consideration. So now Hermes is able to charge a premium. Hermes charges a premium of, you're actually paying a lot more than what you get. But I think none of us could argue it's probably one of the best brands, and it's probably one of the best bags and the quality that you could possibly find. Would that be correct? So again, you're asking them that question. You're getting buy-in. You're getting them to agree with you on that. And with us, you've never heard of us, so you're not paying for the brand. You're paying for the actual service. You're paying for the actual marketing plan for us to facilitate these things. And this is how we do it. So explaining how they're getting a great value, they're actually getting a better value by not paying the franchise fee that comes with Sotheby's that goes to the corporate office, by not paying for the things that don't really matter to them and getting their home sold. What matters is that marketing plan. And we do a better job than our competition, and this is how we do it. So make sure that you're restating that and explaining that. Objection number 3, we'll save the commission by selling it ourselves. I agree, you can save the commission by selling it yourselves. You can also put an heirloom in a garage sale, but do you think that would generate the most exposure? Can I explain how? We use the example of the Hope Diamond, valued at over $200 million. Is that something you'd put a sign in the yard and put it in a garage sale? No, you'd use an auction house, and you would create the most exposure you possibly can for the buyer that will be, and you'll market to the buyer that will be buying that home. Well, that's what we do. And again, going back to the marketing plan. And you can talk about the for sale by owners, 2% of them, give them the stats on the for sale by owners. Let's list high, we can always come down later. I understand you want to list high to leave room for negotiating. That makes sense, but here's my concern. And then again, giving them an analogy or a story in the fishing is good. And this is something else I added just today to update this, because this is a concern, which is a valid concern. We're seeing a lot of sellers in today's market, which is they do want to test the market. They don't want leaving money on the table. When they see their neighbors selling with multiple offers sold in 3 days, or they see all the competing properties that you're showing them on their CMA have sold within 10 days, then they're probably thinking, well, those people all left money on the table. So if they weren't selling their home in 30 days or 40 days, then they probably left money on the table. If I was a seller, that's what I would think. So I would also agree with them. I would want to go ahead and test the market, and that's something I think you should definitely do. Is it doesn't hurt to test the market. It's really, really important to explain why, your methodology in testing the markets and the timing. So what we usually suggest is testing it at whatever price they feel like that you may feel like that you could test it at. What is someone we know they're not going to pay more than X amount. Okay, well, let's list it at X amount, because no one wants to leave money on the table. But then make it clear up front that within 10 days, if we don't have offers, or if we don't have enough showings, for every 10 showings, you should have an offer according to NAR statistics. So if we're not having 10 showings, or if we're not having an offer within the first 10 days, we need to reduce. There's enough activity in this market, obviously, with the way these things are selling, that within 10 days, we'll know if we're fishing at the right depth or not. So then we'll reduce again in another 10 days. If that's not, and we'll keep making reductions every 10 days until we're at where we feel like market value should be based on my CMA. And then we'll leave it there for 30 days. And then we'll reduce every 30 days 2 to 3%. Now that's, in today's environment, that's like light years away for most sellers, and for you guys too. So let's first focus on every 10 days of reduction to get it into the pool that your CMA is showing that it should be sold. And make sure that within 30 days, the first 30 days, you do have it priced within the value of what your CMA is indicating. But as far as testing the market for 2 or 3 reductions every 10 days, I don't think there's any harm in that. And it's something I would probably suggest in this market. So something you don't want to lose a listing over when another agent comes in and says they can get a higher price for it. We want to think it over. This is the most common objection you'll hear from a seller that's trying to put you off, or that's trying to not make a commitment. So you want to make sure that you don't let them off the hook. You need to ask them, what is there to think about? You ask the question sometimes 2 to 3 times. There's well, I just want to talk to my wife about it. I don't want to be on the spot. Her and I make a decision jointly, and we just need to talk about this before we decide. We do that on every major decision. And your response, I understand that, I appreciate that, and I respect that. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and go through the paperwork since I'm here, just out of respect for all of our time, and sign the paperwork, and then you talk about it. And if for any reason you're not comfortable with it, then I will tear up the paperwork as soon as you call me. Does that sound fair? There again, asking them that question. Takes a powerful agent to ask them that question. But there's a good chance you will lose that listing if you don't ask these questions. So that's extremely important. We want to sleep on it. Again, they're trying to put you off. There, you're right. It's a big decision, isn't it? The decision must be made on what you want, correct? So there again, you want to go back to kind of to think it over. They're just trying to put you off. So let's expedite this. They may say, well, we just don't know if you have the experience in this price range. Well, we just, you'll be able to flush out other questions that if you walk out of that listing appointment, it's too late. So that's why you have to be direct and bold and ask them up front when they try to put you off with the, we want to sleep on it, or we want to think about it. Okay. We have a friend in the business. You sell a lot in the area. I used to get this all the time. You sell a lot in the area, and we want to get your valuation, but we have a friend that we actually, we're planning on listing with. How does that make you feel? So I can appreciate that. Almost everyone does. Let me show you how the statistics compare, and there again, you want to compare side by side because you want to take emotion out of the equation, and you really want results to make a difference, and you want to reiterate the results that you get for your clients. So that's the first thing that I do. Then in the past, I've appealed to their emotional appeal, and I've said, I think your friend would probably agree they really want what's best for you, right? And your friend probably wants you to use the best agent that can get the job done, right? And there again, you want to ask that hard question. And a lot of agents won't ask that hard question. You're getting paid what you get paid, and you've earned this listing because you're asking questions like this, and other people will not. And it takes a strong agent to defend your seller and to defend their price and to defend your commission. So keep that in mind. Another agent said they could get more money. Objection number 8. I can appreciate that. And you can probably understand an agent that will list your property overpriced should be paying you rent for their sign in your yard. Can I explain why? And I get like my feathers ruffle when someone brings that up, because I kind of take it personally, and the passion that's in your voice and the way you explain this to that seller is real important. They should be charging you should be charging them rent for signing, and you have to be it's a very serious accusation. It's a serious statement, but it's something that's very, very true in the business. So make sure that you understand your job, my job, and my agreement with you is to get your property sold, not to sell your competition down the street. Because if I list your property overpriced and I know up front it's not going to sell for that, not only do I have to sell it to a buyer, but I have to sell it to the appraiser as well, and the company that's loaning on it. Do you think we're just going to get cash offers on this? So that's where you have to remind them how this process works. And I would be doing you a disservice if I was to list it at a price that it just simply would not sell at, and then sell your competition down the street. So that's something that that's real important to explain. And Agent X said they would do it for less. So discount brokerage. We've all heard this one. This I love. I added this morning. This is another one of Tom Ferry's objection handlers. So Agent X said they would do it for less. That is probably because he has the most realistic value of what his skills are really worth. You have to admit that's pretty good. And then again, using an analogy, and these are analogies that we had, but I refined these a bit and added another example. But if you were on trial for your life, would you want the best attorney defending you, or would you go to LegalZoom.com? And when you are hiring a service professional, and that's what this business is, it's not just putting the property in the MLS. If it were that simple, these discount brokerages would have more market share. They would have more business than what they have. It's less. They have less than 10% of the market. Discount brokerages do. So if that were the case, don't you think they would have the majority of the market? It's not as simple as that. So, but the question is, if something is as important as being on trial for your life, or let's go to the other extreme. Would you use LegalZoom.com, or would you use an attorney? And would you want to use a good attorney? And I see the same thing with real estate professionals. There's a lot of people that broad brush real estate professionals just like they broad brush attorneys. Yet some of our best clients have been attorneys. It's because they know the value of their time. If they don't specialize in real estate, then they're not going to mess with it. They're going to have a professional like us handle the sale for them. And there's good attorneys and there's bad attorneys. There's attorneys that I have lost a lot of money with because I was concerned about their hourly fee or their rate. There's other attorneys that are extremely expensive, but it's for a reason. They're worth their weight in gold. So I'd see the exact same thing with real estate professionals. But let's take it to another extreme. Let's talk about your haircut. Do you go to Supercuts to get your haircut, or do you go to a professional salon? So that's a little bit extreme, but you want to pay $7.99 for a haircut because there's plenty of people with buzzers out there that can do it for $7.99. Or you want to go to a salon with someone that's skilled. It takes on average 1,500 hours for someone just to get their license to cut hair. It takes less than that to get your real estate license. So it shows you the variance of the different types of professionals that are out there. And let's be honest, many of them are not very professional. And sadly, it gives our industry a bad reputation. But this is what we do. And they're again going back to your marketing plan, explaining everything that you do and what you do different. And sometimes they have to hear it over and over and over before they understand that. And that's why referral-based business is so important, because someone that's had good service and you've provided that kind of service, then they are referring other people that value that type of service. And you may find out at this point in the listing presentation that you're with a supercuts type of client. Is that the kind of client you want to be working for? It's going to be constantly nagging and feeling like they've paid more. They'll never understand what it's like to go to a salon because they can't afford it. So, that's, again, knowing your demographic and knowing the type of client that you're working with. This may flush it out right there, and explaining that. So the way you explain that and the examples that you give, and it's something you want to ask yourself before you go out on that listing appointment. Is this for sale by owner? Is it someone that even values my time? And do they understand what we go through to get homes sold? And that negotiating skills there's a huge variance in negotiating skills among realtors. Most are mediocre at best. Very few realtors are very, very good at negotiating and very, very good at conveying the service level that we expect. So another great thing where you guys have such an advantage in this market is that so many of the good realtors are so busy, they honestly cannot. I know a lot of realtors right now turning down business. They cannot handle the business that they have. And that's what happens when you convey great service and you have a great sphere of influence, and you're delivering consistent good service to them. So this is a service industry. It's about the service that you deliver. And that's where you have so much opportunity in this market, being such a hot market. A lot of the best realtors just can't handle it right now. So it gives you guys such a great advantage. Okay, you haven't sold any homes in my area and or my price range. That makes sense, but we do sell a lot of homes. And do you have confidence in me that I can sell your home? That's a very tough question to ask. That's something I would probably role play. I think I would probably practice that with your peers. And do you have confidence in me that I could sell your home? There'll be a pause. There will be a pause on the other side of that question. And most of the time, they're going to say yes. Whether they have confidence in you or not, they've just screwed themselves if they don't, because they told you that they do. So that takes a powerful agent to ask that question. So that's something you want to make sure that you are asking that question. It may not appear we've sold homes in your area, and this is one of the reasons why. So you can talk about your days on market, and then on some statistics. But I think probably what would be, I'm a stats guy, so I would respond to that. But most people are going to, again, respond better when you actually show them the marketing plan. And what I would do is I would ask to see your competition's marketing plan. Well, okay, so are you concerned, and ask them, are you concerned about whether I can sell you said you're confident in me being able to sell your home. So I think the question that's probably more important at this point is, who's going to do the best job? Which realtor is going to do the best job of netting you the most amount of money? And what does it take to net the most amount of money? Probably the most exposure and the most amount of buyers, right? Again, you're asking them a question. They're screwing themselves if they don't say yes. So they're going to say yes. And so then that is, again, where you show them the marketing plan. Well, this is how we generate these buyers. We're going through all these things in our marketing plan to generate these buyers. Where is Mary Beth's marketing plan? Or where is Agent X, Agent Y, Keller Williams, Evie Holiday, their marketing plan? Let's compare this and see what we do different. They probably didn't even bring them a marketing plan. And Agent X with Keller Williams they haven't been trained as well as you. They don't know how to handle these objections. So they don't know the value of a marketing plan. And it's certainly not as robust or thorough as our marketing plan and what you're going to do for your seller. So, and if it is, and you'll learn this again, if you're practicing on this as much as you should be, you will know your competition's marketing plan. You should know your competition's marketing plan if they do or do not have one. I've been very, very surprised on some luxury listing appointments and some of the brokerages that I've talked to where their marketing plan is pathetic at best. And they rely so much on their laurels and so much on their brand that sometimes the agents don't even know what they do. How well do you think they can defend their commission? How well do you think that agent can go in and handle these objections if the agent doesn't even know themselves what they do to get the home sold? They put in the MLS and they turn in the listing to the office. So that's where you guys are better than that. Okay, we want you to cut your commission. The average listing commission for the services we're providing is $6,000 plus 3%, whatever number that is. I know of companies that will list your property on the MLS for $500. The value relative to entering a listing in the MLS is certainly compensatory. You pay for the sign, the lot box, etc. And a lot of times you'll pay an upfront fee. I could give you a list of companies that will do that if you'd like. And you can pay them $1,000 to put it in the MLS, and you can pay them $180 for the lot box, and you can pay them for a la carte services of what you want. You can enter the listing yourself with the showing service. These are the things that are on our marketing plan that we do, and we handle that for you. But if we're not the right company for you, then there's plenty of other companies out there that will do that. Now, granted, they have less than 5 to 10% of the market. Most people don't want to deal with that. But I guess at the end of the day, it kind of depends on what your time is worth and how much exposure do you want on your property. Throw it back to them. And then that's where in your marketing plan, in your seller's guide, show them how much is your time really worth. These are all the things that we do, and this is how much time that it takes. And these are all the places that we're exposing your property, and this is what it costs to do that. Let's look at this. Let's do kind of a cost-benefit analysis on this. And again, it's about the value, and you're having to prove your value and what it is. So I think when you offer to refer them to discount brokers and they understand the value that discount brokers provide, you can go to LegalZoom for $25 and download a will, or you can go to get a pro cut for $7.99. But is that what you want? Do you really? There's a lot of work. Is this the type of work that you want to be doing? So, I'll sell my home when the values go up. And that's where the cost benefit analysis showing them seasonality in the market cycles. March and April is when we see the premium properties come on the market. People wait until the spring to list the premium properties, and then those close, and that provides sale comps for then people listing in May, June, and July. They list at the top of the market. And sometimes those properties listed in May, June, July, sometimes they have to adjust their price because they're looking at what the premium property sold for in March and April. And theirs may not be such a premium property. But historically, traditionally, June, the month of June, coming up here in the next couple months, is the highest point as far as the number of sales in the market and also sales prices. So, but that's if they're listing right now. And their property has to be in perfect condition. It has to be in great shape. The condition is what dictates a lot of this. It's not necessarily the true value of the home, but it's just you have better properties that are being listed in March and April than you do that are in October and November. People listing in October and November, they're probably in either a distress situation or they have to sell, to where they probably haven't put as much planning into the sale of their home as a spring seller. So hopefully that makes sense, and you're explaining that to your sellers. We can always come down in price later. I understand, that makes sense. I just don't want you to miss the market, and it could hurt us down the road. Can I show you how that could happen? And that's, again, taking seasonality into the conversation would be important. We aren't quite ready yet. We need to finish a couple projects around the house before we put it on the market. Great. That's one of the great advantages of a fantastic listing agent. We'll help you coordinate some of those things. We can market the we can pre-market the property. Sometimes we can even save you money on the commission if we procure a buyer before it goes in the MLS. Show them your pre-marketing plan, what you're going to do that. Number 19, we want to have an exclusion in the contract if our friend or neighbor buys it. I understand. I'm happy to write that in. Since my marketing expenses are the same and our firm's marketing expenses are the same, what do you think is a fair amount to charge for our marketing? And then you've already gone through in your presentation all the money that you spend on marketing. So that's something they need to think about, and then come to what you think is a fair amount. Expired seller says, the last agent never showed our home himself and neither did anyone else from his office. Why didn't you show the home when it was on the market? So this is another one we added today from Tom Ferry, which I thought was pretty good. I was fulfilling the promises I made to my sellers, getting their home sold. Long pause. Which is most important to you? That is a powerful statement. And that's something they cannot argue with. And probably what I would do is I would expand upon that and explain how, a lot of the value that I bring to the table is not just bringing buyers, but bringing other agents through the MLS tour, through the tours that what we do, to the email campaigns, the calls that I make to other top agents in the area. That's a lot of the value that we bring to the table, not just marketing to the buyers. Does that make sense? So that's a real important observation that you need to make for your sellers. And sometimes, Mr. Seller, the buyers that we get that inquire on your property, and the buyers that we get buyers that inquire every single day that want to look at property. We don't show them property unless they're qualified. And our time is best spent qualifying those buyers. And sometimes it's a lot of the people that maybe other realtors have brought through here weren't even qualified. If your how many buyers did your last agent bring through the home? And they may say 5, 7, whatever it was. Well, how many of those buyers bought it? Maybe they weren't even qualified. Maybe they should have been out looking for a real buyer and following a marketing plan like what we have that's in place that's going to generate a buyer for your home that's going to get it sold. That's what's important, right? So again, pulling them back to the marketing plan, and your job is to facilitate that marketing plan to get their home sold. We're already working with another agent. Great. Do you have a contract with them? Can I show you how our results compare? I just want to make sure you're working with the best agent possible. Now, guys and gals, this is really important. This is why it's so important to ask these questions before you go out to the listing appointment, and ask the question, will you sign that listing agreement when I come out at X time, and follow the Waller Group seller appointment form? Because the reality is, when they tell you this and you're already in front of them at that table and to get them to sign the listing agreement, you can't pull stats on another agent. You don't have time to do your homework. So, but if you ask the questions before you go out and you isolate all the objections before you go out, you can call me, we can go through broker metrics, I can pull the stats, you can do a lot more homework. The same goes with the pricing. If you give them a range of pricing before you go out and they say, oh, no, I'm not considering anything less than 460 because another agent told us that she can get 460 for us. Then okay, well, I need to spend a little more time on my CMA, or this is going to be a challenge that I need to work on, and I want to make sure that I'm prepared for this pricing objection when I get to the appointment. So that's why it's so important to isolate all these objections before you get to the appointment. We're worried it may sell too soon. I can understand that in this market, the greatest thing about being the seller is that you have options. And that's one of the things I always like to remind sellers, is that they're in the driver's seat. They don't have to choose the offer they get. So that's, I'm the one that's investing my time and my dollars in marketing your home. You just get more options. What's the harm in that? So then you can also explain the delayed closing. We can negotiate a delayed closing, a lease back, some lease backs up to 6 months. Again, educating them about seasonality and the market cycles and when to list at what months of the year. This is a conversation that you may be having with them, depending on what time of the year, and they need to be educated in what their advantages and disadvantages are of listing at certain times of the year. So, for example, around November, December, the great thing is there's very little competition. So if you have a unique home, or if you have a home that maybe like every other house on the block, and right now there's 4 homes competing with it, November, December, there'll be fewer buyers out there, but we may not be competing with these other 3 houses. Condo complexes would be a great example of that. You got the same floor plan, 5 others on the market. Well, November, December, there might not be as many on the market. So that could actually help us. In the spring, it helps you because in February or March, before the spring market hits, if you have one of the first sellers and you're in a condo complex or in an area where there's a lot of homes that are the same, that there's going to be more coming on the market just because of seasonality, just because of market cycles. Then if we're one of the first, then we have an advantage of not having to compete with other listings as they come on the market. And we're going to see a lot more market. Here we are in April. We're going to see more come on the market in May and June. It's the peak sales months. The other agent said he would or she could do this. I can appreciate that. Can I tell you why that makes me nervous? If other agents don't have the courage to stand up to you regarding their worth, how strong could they possibly be defending you and the price we set for your home? Honestly, I think that's kind of a cheesy response, but there's a lot of it. We've gone through a lot of other objection handlers that are much better, but these are updated, and these are the top 25 objection handlers. So I'll stop with that, and then we have a lot of other objection handlers that are in keep in mind the 2 script books. The Waller Group script workout has most of the seller objections, and we just updated that today. And then the Waller Group buyer script book has most of the buyer objections, and that will be updated probably by the end of the week. And we went over those on Tuesday. So thank you for your attention. Have a productive week.